Now, at the same time that the law was evolving, so was the way in which we placed our bets. And one of those new innovations was spread betting. Nowadays, the Sporting Group is the best known brand in this sector, and whilst you may be unfamiliar with the parent company name, you probably know the two main entities which it comprises, Sporting Index and Sporting Solutions. And it is the first of these, Sporting Index, which I want to take a brief look at to explain its part in the timeline of betting.
Sporting Index was founded in 1992 after the relaxation of some of the betting laws, but before the betting industry found its way to the internet. And like many inventions, the origin of its birth is somewhat debated, but from a commercial viewpoint, sports spread betting found a home with Sporting Index, City Index and IG Index, the latter two of which were established financial spread betting companies at the time. And sports spread betting took off very, very rapidly indeed. And we have to ask ourselves why companies like Sporting Index succeeded during the 1990s. Well, it was something fresh and new, and it offered the sort of volatility that just didn't exist in the traditional betting shop atmosphere, and some customers did like that volatility. Because rather than betting on just 1x2, the match winner, the correct score, new markets like shirt numbers and bookings, which you may be familiar with already, they were created to add excitement and uncertainty. There was a lot of creativity in the spread betting industry at the time. Other sports like cricket offered a very wide and much more interesting array of markets to the spread better than you might find at the local betting shop. And there was also no transparent betting tax for the customer to pay because it was absorbed by the spread betting firms themselves. And incidentally, the spread betting firms, that is, they're regulated by the Financial Services Authority rather than the Gambling Commission. Of course, existing fixed odds companies decided, such as William Hill and Ladbrokes, they decided that they needed to add this type of betting very quickly to their portfolio. But soon they realised it wasn't actually a good fit for their mainly retail-facing customer base. It wasn't as easy for them to understand, and so they ended what was a very brief involvement after only a few years. But it's a testament to the spread betting companies that the fixed odds companies themselves looked up to, tried to imitate and eventually copied many of their markets and their ideas. And later on, when we come to look at some of the innovations like cash out, in-play betting and betting against something you don't like, remember that it was the spread firms that actually pioneered those ideas. And we can include SpreadX, founded in 1999, amongst those companies too. City Index and IG Index closed down their sports spread betting business in the early part of the decade just to concentrate on financial betting, and that's left just SpreadX and Sporting Index as the main providers of the sports spread betting product. And both of these companies have had to adapt to a rapidly changing betting landscape, and in the case of Sporting Index, this involved the creation of Sporting Solutions in 2008. So until the mid-1990s, the options for the bettor had remained largely unchanged for about 30 years. Either the racecourse, the betting shop, or a telephone betting account. But it didn't take long for the internet to be exploited by casino firms online, and the first of these was launched in 1994. Sports betting sites followed shortly thereafter, with Intertops claiming to be the first such firm to have an online presence in 1996. Online poker started in 1998 and enjoyed quite a boom period in the early 2000s. And nowadays there are endless online sites, though as we'll see, regulation does vary by jurisdiction. Now in the UK, after various licences were granted by offshore islands like Gibraltar, Alderney and so on, gambling legislation in 2001 and then more detailed legislation in 2005 gave online betting more regulated legal status. Now, of more interest to us perhaps is just how much of our betting business is done through the internet nowadays. Of course, most firms don't have the retail presence of, say, a Ladbrokes or a William Hill, so they have no choice but to offer online betting. But even William Hill, in their 2017 annual report, noted that 43% of their net revenue came from online wagering as opposed to 54% from the shops. And recent figures from the Gambling Commission state that the online gambling sector accounts for about 33-34% of the overall market share in regards to the entire gambling industry. And that in itself is an increase of a couple of percent as compared to the period of 2015-16, so it's still moving onwards and upwards. As a proportion of global gambling revenues, however, the digital business still only accounts for about 10% of it, because shop-based betting is absolutely entrenched elsewhere, and many governments just haven't got round to legalising online betting, but this number will continue to rise. And that leads us neatly on to our next video on the regulation of gambling laws in different jurisdictions.